Welcome back to Starkiller Base. Today we continue our Spirit of the Rebellion card analysis series with the battlefields from the set. So let's start off with the Carbon Freezing Chamber. So this is on Bespin. The claim effect on this one says choose a character die. That die cannot be rolled during the next round. So this one's really interesting. It's sort of like the Frozen Wastes in that it only affects character dice. While Frozen Waste allows you to claim and remove a character die at your best opportunity, unfortunately you can't always claim at the best time. So if you can claim early the previous round and then say, hey Darth Vader, you're not allowed to roll in your die this round, that's pretty darn good. The issue of course is that you can have it used against you, but if you're playing a deck that has generally bad character dice but a lot of them, then using this ability is pretty good. When I first saw this, I said, hey, this would be a really good card to run against Palpatine. But the issue is that Palpatine is generally faster than most decks because it's only one character in it. So you may find that Palpatine is actually using this against you, in which case you're going to have a much, much harder time to kill him. So it's not necessarily the best choice. I'm sure that there are some decks that can make some good use out of it, like, say, a 4 Stormtrooper deck. You've got basically the worst character dice in the game, arguably, so it wouldn't be too bad if it got used against you. But of course, your deck is also going to be slower than most people, so oftentimes it would be doing exactly that. So it's a tough call. Like in a Leia Akbar deck, I would prefer to run Frozen Wastes because you can claim early and get rid of a character die and choose the character die that is the most dangerous at the time, whereas this one just says, let's say you're playing against 3 Death Troopers. I pick a Death Trooper and that guy can't roll in, but the other 2 might roll 2 damage on each die, whereas if I were running Frozen Wastes, I could wait to see what they rolled and then claim to remove the one that is most advantageous for my opponent. Next we have Cargo Hold in Eravana. The claim ability reads, move an upgrade from a character to another character controlled by the same player. This one is really, really interesting. One of the first interactions people think about is using training and then claiming to move it to a character that you can't normally play training on. See, the thing is, the restrictions you see on upgrades are their play restrictions. So for example, with training, it says a non-unique red character only, and so you can only play it out on a non-unique red character. However, moving an upgrade from a character to another character doesn't check play restrictions because you're not playing it, you're simply moving it. So you can run something like Emperor Palpatine with 1 die and a TIE Pilot with 1 die. You can play training out on the TIE Pilot, and then you can claim Cargo Hold to move training over to Palpatine and have Elite Palpatine with a TIE Pilot, which is bonkers. The only issue, of course, is that your opponent can then claim to put it back. So, you can do some shenanigans like setting up that combo and then playing new orders to switch Cargo Hold out so that it is no longer the active battlefield. You can use the Ascension Gun to use the special to use the claim ability on Cargo Hold if you didn't choose it. Of course, that requires you to have red and yellow and goodness knows what else in your deck. So there's a lot of interesting options here. Let's say your opponent has a character with 3 upgrades on them and another character that has 1 upgrade on them. If you claim and you take the upgrade from the one character and move it to the character that has 3 upgrades, then the controller of that character gets to choose which upgrade is discarded, whether it be the one that was moved, or say you moved a 2-cost upgrade over to a guy that had 2 3-cost upgrades and a data pad on him. He could get rid of the data pad and put the 2-cost upgrade on him. Next, we have the Docking Bay on the Finalizer. The claim says, play a support from your hand or discard pile, decreasing its cost by 1. So this is also an interesting card. If you're playing a deck that has lots of supports, then this battlefield is pretty great. The best part about it for me is that it is economy, plus it can be played from your hand or discard pile. So unlike the Imperial Armory, which can only be played from your hand, if you have a support, like let's say that you're running Akbar hired gun. You discard the Millennium Falcon to reroll, and then, hey, I've got 4 resources. Let me claim and pay 4 for the Falcon to put it in play. It's pretty good. And in a meta where most people don't even run supports, this is almost useless to a lot of decks, whereas it could be very useful to your deck if you build it right. Next, we have Ewok Village in Endor. The claim ability is remove all shields from a character. So if you're playing in a shield-heavy meta, and you don't have a deck with shields, Ewok Village is pretty great. If you're worried about Qui-Gon, ideally you build a deck where it has no shields, and then you just take Ewok Village and just say, hey, you can, whatever, you got shields, that's cool. you can use it against me. Oh, I don't have any shields, so the claim ability is useless for you. But for me, I might be able to remove shields if you got them. So it's pretty good. And I mean, you claim your battlefield as the active battlefield. Your opponent puts 2 shields on a character. You go, that's cool. You play out your turn, and then you claim and remove their 2 shields, and they've lost their advantage from going second. Next, we have Mazdas Castle in Takodana. The claim effect reads, draw 2 cards. Place any number of cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck in any order. So this is sort of a tutor battlefield. It's pretty interesting if you're looking to find something in particular. Say you're playing a Leia Akbar deck and you're looking to find a hit and run, or it's a trap or something like that. You can say, okay, well, I don't need this card right now, but I really need to find a hit. It's a trap. So you claim it, you do that, you put whatever on the bottom of your deck that you don't need until later. And if you claim multiple other times, then they won't be on the bottom of your deck. They'll be the 6th card on the bottom of your deck or something like that. And you can know what's coming up eventually. So it's pretty interesting. Of course, any deck can use it, but if you're playing a fastish deck, then you can use it to your advantage. Next, we have Moisture Farm on Tatooine. The claim reads, gain 1 resource. Pretty simple. If you're playing a deck that's probably going to claim the battlefield and economy is your thing, then it's pretty great. I've seen people playing the Triple Death Trooper deck with the Moisture Farm so that they can afford things because Death Troopers don't have resource dice. But if you're running endless ranks or something like that, then gaining resources is good. It would work well in a Crime Lord deck as well. Next, we have Oto Gunga on Naboo. The claim effect reads, heal 1 damage from a character. So this is similar to Moisture Farm, except it's damage as opposed to resources. I would maybe run this in a Palpatine deck as the Palpatine character, simply because I'm going to be claiming, and essentially I'm putting you on a clock by having my ability and doing damage. And because I'm claiming oftentimes before you, I am making it harder for you to kill me before that clock has ticked away. It's not die control, but it's indirectly die control, and in a meta where die control events become less useful because everyone's action cheating, you can just say, okay, well, you hit me for 1 melee damage, so let me claim and remove that. So you've effectively mitigated that melee damage die. You didn't do it before the guy did the damage with it, but the 1 damage is still healed. Next, we have the Secluded Beach in Scarif. The claim effect reads, remove an opponent's die showing range damage. So if you're running a pure melee deck, then this is pretty great. I mean, it's obviously you'll have things like force push or whatnot that actually have range damage sides. But if you're playing against a deck that has range damage, then this is much more dangerous for them than it is for you. So this would probably replace Mos Eisley Spaceport if you're running a melee deck, because if you're playing against a range deck, they will purposefully not take this one because they don't want to lose their dice. But it doesn't really have a detrimental side to you. Next, we have the Secret Facility on Scarif. The claim effect reads, resolve up to 3 of your dice showing damage, ranged or melee. So now we are seeing some support for mixed damage decks, which is always nice. We've got characters that have ranged and melee damage on their character dice nowadays, so it's pretty good to have that. So you can run Kylo Django, and if you happen to roll out a mix of dice and you need to kill somebody in 1 action instead of 2, then you can claim and just do that. You can resolve a 1 ranged, a +2 ranged, and a 2 melee. And because this allows you to resolve up to 3 dice, you can resolve modified sides with it, so long as there is an unmodified side that matches them. And lastly here we have the War-Torn Streets of Jeddah. The claim effect reads, discard a random card from an opponent's hand. So this is a pretty interesting card. It works well in a mill deck if it's a fastish mill deck. Let's say that your opponent has a bunch of really bad die rolls sitting out there and they've only got 1 card left. You can claim an action early, get rid of the card from their hand, and they don't have any rerolls left. So it could neuter the rest of their turn. One thing that I was finding at the tournament I was playing yesterday is that the hero mill decks were having problems because they could mill your entire deck out, but they had trouble getting the last cards out of your hands. I won 2 games against mill decks where I had 3 or 4 cards left in my hand because they turbo milled my deck down. But aside from 3PO and that sort of thing, they didn't have many discard sides. So this may be the answer. If you're running a hero mill deck like a Snap Maz Padme deck, because Snap has his dice out there and I can't claim the battlefield to end the turn, if you're controlling my stuff and milling me and that sort of thing, and Snap's dice are out there and I don't have any money, then You can just take your time, do your thing, and then discard a random card from my hand. So that is all the 10 battlefields for the Spirit of the Rebellion. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please like and subscribe, and keep an eye out for the next video coming soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.